Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. This year, try that with all your plans, you accelerate action.
Accelerate action for equality and progress.
We're already doing a damn thing. Let's just keep it up.
So thank you all for joining us today. At the end of last year, we filmed the first Reflections by Vision with V episode. It was meant to be a one-off where we were just talking about how our year had gone. But our visionaries loved it. So we said, well, if it worked out, if it was good, why don't we do it again? So this year, we'll be hosting a number of Reflections by Vision with V episodes where we'll be inviting some high-achieving, exceptional women to join us around the table to discuss a broad range of issues. In this particular episode, we're doing it in honor of International Women's Day, but also against the backdrop of the historic election of Ghana's first female vice president, Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, and we're very excited and proud of this achievement. So I'm joined today by Genevieve from Amnesty International. She's a human rights activist. And then I'm also joined by Sheila, who is a CEO in an insurance company. I'm joined by Beryl, who owns one of the most prominent creative agencies on the continent. And I'm joined by Patty the Strategist. I'm sure you've all heard of her. But I'll let them introduce themselves and then we can get into it. So before we go on, I'd like to introduce myself again. My name is Norvisi and I'm the creator of Vision with V. I'm also a corporate girly. I work at Danone full-time as a senior manager for strategy and consumer insights for West Africa. And I'm happy to be hosting this conversation of Reflections by Vision with V. So I would ask each of the ladies to tell me about themselves, what they do, and tell us about the business or the institution or organization they work in. So I think let's start from Patty. We'll start from Patty.
Hi, my name is Patty and I am a marketing strategist. I help businesses, simply put, I help businesses increase visibility and revenue. I've been doing this for 5 years. Currently, we are optimizing our processes, our people, and then processes. So I am off socials, just doing the work. And then when we are ready to fully give a great experience to our people, then we're coming back online. So yeah.
Yeah, my name is Beryl Agyekum Ayaba. I am a civil engineer that didn't engineer, basically. I run Eco House Africa, which started out as a magazine in KNUST. In 2008. And since then, we've gone into a 360 marketing agency set up in Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Benin. And I mean, what I'm excited about right now is we are setting up South Africa. So that's what I'm most excited about. Yeah.
Love it.
My name is Sheila Wristberg. I'm an insurance broker and I work as the managing director for iRisk Management Limited, which is an insurance brokerage firm based in Ghana. I'm also the executive director for iRisk Reinsurance, and we do business, reinsurance business across Africa. And I founded a female executive network called Willy Africa, and we are into helping women in the insurance and financial services space to get into leadership roles in Africa. I'm excited about quite a number of things this year. One of it being that iRisk is trying to launch an insurance aggregator platform so that people can have insurance 24/7 from the comfort of their home. And it's something that I'm really excited to be working on, and I hope that we're able to launch by the end of the year.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm Genevieve Partington, and I'm the country director for Amnesty International Ghana. Amnesty International has been in Ghana for more than 50 years now, and we've been fighting for the rights of everyone, regardless of your age, sex, gender, religion. And it's something I'm a human rights activist, and I've been doing this since I was probably walking. And yeah, we work on different things: freedom of expression, equality, non-discrimination, prisoner rights, death penalty, refugee rights, you name it. Anything to do with human rights, witchcraft accusations, we work on all those things. I believe my passion project would be something more personal, but it still has to do with the development sector, which is a network of women that I have set up. It's called LEADER, Ladies in Development Africa. And it's similar to your passion project, and it has to do with just creating and sharing opportunities for women in the development sector, and just making sure that we get into decision-making roles. Because you agree with me, for example, United Nations, we've never had a woman Secretary General. There's just so many UN agencies that do not have women at the highest level, and we want to ensure that there's that kind of gender equity, gender equality within the development space. Yeah.
That's very interesting. But you know, I actually always thought Amnesty International was only focused on things related to prisons. So to hear you say you're doing, I think you said even refugee, like rights and witchcraft, I didn't expect that. So can you tell us a little bit more about?
Yeah, so I think it depends the priority areas per country. It depends what issues are more pressing in the country. For Ghana, like this, a very pressing issue is, for example, gender-based violence. So we work a lot on gender-based violence. We work a lot on women's rights. But we also work a lot on freedom of expression, where we go into protests. The right to protest in Ghana is currently under threat. Our civic space is shrinking, even in Africa. You hear what's happening in Kenya, in Mozambique. Protesters are being arrested, detained against their will, and some are even being killed during protests. So we don't want Ghana to get there. I believe last year, some protesters were arrested, and Amnesty has also just been, supporting those that were arrested to ensure that they get the justice they need. Yeah.
Okay, and aren't you ever afraid? Because, the space you're working in, you'll probably be butting heads with some political agencies. Are you ever worried?
Naturally, not everyone's going to be happy with you, because sometimes we have this whole argument about culture versus international human rights. But Amnesty stands for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR. And guess what? We also have the African Human Rights Charter. And that clearly spells out what human rights is. It's even more detailed than the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Is even more detailed than that. So, sometimes you're under threat. Sometimes you receive some funny social media messages that people will know your house, they'll want to come and rape you, they'll kill you, those kind of things. But at the end of the day, I am a human rights activist. That is inevitable, and it really does. And I always tell people, you can't work with this organization if you don't have a passion for the issues that we push for. If you don't have the passion, because it's a lifestyle, it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle.
Because it has to cut across all your values.
Yes.
You can't be like a human rights activist in the day, and then after you can just...
Yes. And then you are okay, you're a perpetrator of gender-based violence, or hitting a woman, you're okay with that, or stereotyping women, or believing that the women's rights issue, the affirmative action bill, shouldn't exist, the law. It's a holistic thing. You can't be lukewarm about human rights. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I feel like I've learned a lot just listening to that, because I literally thought that Amnesty International was only about freeing prisoners.
Yeah,
that's
so
what
a
I
lot of
always
people
thought,
come
yeah.
to us and say we want amnesty, but the organization is not about that. Some people want relocation. We don't grant relocation unless there's a very, very serious issue and there's a lot of evidence and proof that need you to be relocated. And people automatically think you'll be relocated to Europe. That also doesn't happen. You could be relocated to a country in Africa. So it just really depends. We get all sorts of cases, though. It could be domestic violence cases. It could be prisoner rights. Maybe your rights were abused when you were in prison. Could be anything. Right. Yeah.
When Genevieve was talking earlier, she mentioned that she's been doing this since she was born. And knowing her, I kind of see what she means. But for the rest of you, have you always known that this is the career that you end up in?
Well, me, no. I mean, I don't think I ever thought I would be an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to be a civil engineer, so my dad can be happy. But I mean, I always thought that I was going to be a civil engineer. I was ready for that. I mean, at every point, I mean, for me, it was the beginning of the magazine, and at every point that I was doing that, it was just to have fun with it. And so, I mean, I would typically, the mic would come out, you know, people would help us to sell it, and it was sort of becoming a force that I didn't realize it was becoming until, you know, we got a request from a brand, and I realized, okay, this is serious business. We have to start getting serious. So, I mean, but when I look back, I know recently one of my friends was telling me when we were in JSS, I had a club called Kids Support Club. And then they were talking about how we became like this big club in our junior secondary school. So, I mean, my friends feel like this is always something that's been my thing, but I didn't know that. Yeah.
You're just doing you.
Yeah, just having fun with it.
Was your dad upset?
My dad never understood it. I mean, he died 3 years ago, but yeah, until then, he would come to the office and say, so all these people, you're paying these people. What happens? I said, we do events for brands. What if the brand doesn't want to do an event anymore? Like, I don't know how to explain it.
You find another brand.
Yeah, he doesn't understand. He never understood what that was. Yeah.
Because earlier when we were getting ready, I was asking Patty how she does it because I've never been a natural, like, sales-oriented business development person. And I feel like I have to do a lot of that, like working with Vision with V. And even though I do it now, it's obviously out of my comfort zone. Yeah. So she started telling me, but we didn't finish. I wanted her to tell me how she's able to manage that, like always being in sales mode. I think actually this question is for both Patty and Sheila, because Sheila is also a CEO, so she's probably used to the business development. So I'll start with Patty.
So when you asked me, I said that it gets better with time because I never also used to call myself a salesperson. Beryl was my boss. She'll tell you, I never like to pitch. If there's any pitch, I don't want to be the one to do the presentation. I can put together the document, but I want somebody else to speak. And I also never saw myself doing full marketing. I wanted to go read law. It didn't happen. Then I found myself in business school. Took the marketing lectures. It sounded interesting, and then I used to write. So then I wrote for the magazine, and Beryl says, "Oh, come in, do this, try this," and then that's how I got into marketing. So Beryl was my first boss. So
wait, disclaimer. I actually only found out like an hour before we started. Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know.
Right. So over time, I've learned to develop myself. What do you need at this point to be able to create the life that you need? And for me has been sales, being able to sell. I think it even got more crazy when I realized that, listen, nobody's coming to save you. Because a lot of women have been conditioned to think that, oh, some rich man is going to marry you and then life will get rosy. But really, nobody's coming to save you. So I just had to put on the big girl pants and start actively learning to improve that skill. How can I do better with selling? How can I ensure that you have a team? How do you ensure that these people are being paid and they are not feeling a certain way, Yeah, so life had me get there.
You literally had no choice.
No choice.
You could still
can't do law though. You know.
I'm looking into it.
It's never too late. Yeah.
So from my side, I do a little bit of marketing. Actually, I tell everyone in the office that we are all marketers at the end of the day. But did I ever think I'll be getting here? Not at all. I was telling Genevieve earlier that I actually always wanted to be a human rights activist. So I was that little lawyer for everyone when I was like 6, 7. Basically, I would fight for everyone, and then in the end, I'll pick fights I didn't have to have. And I had always, I wanted to be part of the UN, work as UN Secretary General. I wanted to be the first female UN Secretary General when I was younger. But that's what she said too. I don't know if the path is so different now. It's quite different now. What I think after school, after secondary school, I wanted to read law. And then I also thought I liked economics, so maybe I should try business administration. And well, I got law in tech. I got business administration in Legon, and I was like, okay, Legon is closer, so Legon it is. And when I got there, I noticed that maybe I didn't really want to do law after all. So I worked in Big Four, PwC, became a chartered accountant. I don't think anyone grows up wanting to do insurance or sell insurance.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
and I also didn't grow up thinking that way. But I was on the board of iRisk for a year, and it was a startup. We had just like 3 people, very small company. And I'd been thinking of transitioning out of PwC. So the opportunity came, and I was actually interviewing for a CEO for them. And I kept interviewing, we still didn't get anyone. And then the board was like, but the way you kind of see this, why don't you try it? And it took a few months because I was quite, it was like PwC, your path is set out for you. And here's the case where you're going into a startup, you're not even sure, they've just been there for a year, you're not sure if next year they'll still be there.
Yeah.
But I just said, okay, you know what, I'm still young. If it doesn't work out, I'll survive. And fast forward to 5 years, because that was 2018, so fast forward to 5 years now. We've been part of the top 10 insurance brokerage firms for the past 4 years.
That's good.
And no, maybe fast forward to maybe 6 years now. Yeah, and there were 2 years that we're part of the top 5, and there are over 120 brokerage firms in Ghana. So that's like a very good job that we are doing. Yeah, and we've gone from just an insurance brokerage firm to having a reinsurance brokerage firm, and we're about 27 people in all. So it's been quite a journey. Right now we're looking at doing other things. So did I ever think I'll be here? No. Marketing, it just comes with it. At a point, I feel like everyone has to market, whatever you're doing.
Even NGOs.
Yeah, you market yourself, you market and for me, insurance is not just it's a passion right now, because I think of it that people could have so much, the most vulnerable people are the people who don't take up insurance policies. And something happens and someone loses their whole life savings because it was put in a business and everything got burnt. Or someone loses their house and someone loses their car. Meanwhile, just with a little bit of payments, they could secure their future. Right. So I see insurance more as a passion project where I'm helping people to secure their lifestyle, secure their future, so that you can leave something, they can have something for the next day. So yeah.
I feel judged.
You should be, everyone, all those of you who don't have insurance policies, I'm signing you up after this. I'm signing, you do? Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. And for my child
people
too.
Like you. Planning for the future. No. Everyone has to buy insurance before we leave here.
We'll fix it. But you became a CEO when you were 27.
Yeah.
How was that like?
I think it was a very intimidating experience, and I hadn't thought it through properly because I'm always doing very different stuff. Like I'm a biker, I do a lot of weird stuff. So I hadn't thought it through properly, but being on the board was very different from being a CEO, because all of a sudden now you're managing people and they're all older than you. And the industry I found myself in, also very highly regulated, and with a lot of old men. I didn't realize it till I went for my first industry meeting, and everyone was old, like in their 60s and above. They were all men, and I think there were just 2 women there. And I was like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And I didn't know anything about insurance because I was a chartered accountant. The age was not helping me. The fact that I'm a woman was not helping me. Basically, all the odds were against me. So I had to start learning very fast. I got a few people to mentor me, the technical side. Sometimes I go for meetings, I don't even know half of what they're saying, but I'm like nodding. And the thing is, sometimes when you keep quiet, people think you know what's going on. So that was working quite well for me. Like, it's not everything. And after that, I'm Googling, I'm calling people, what does this mean? What does that mean? Yeah. But I think that it also made me learn very fast, because perhaps if I'd been in insurance all throughout, I might not have been where I am. But then, yeah, I had to push myself, and within a few years, I'm now one of the national executives for the Insurance Brokers Association of Ghana, and even internationally, sometimes I get invited to speak in other countries, because I do a lot of advocacy for women within the space.
That's amazing.
And I just think that, I just say it was the grace of God, because personally, I don't know how it got there. Every day I go home and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even know, like my day was terrible, but it's been good so far, and I'm happy I took that step.
Well, what about the rest of you? What has been the one decision or risk you've taken that you think has made all the difference in your career or in your business?
Well, I think for me, it's been transitioning into from the magazine into like a full agency. I didn't know that there was something like this. I think when I finished KNUST, I did my national service with urban roads, and so I mean that was a natural thing to do. But we had the magazine on the side, and we had teams on campus that were putting the content in the magazine. So after service, one of the engineers there said, even though I'm an engineer, it seems like I like very colorful things. so introduced me to someone, a man called George Murimi. He was recruiting for his agency at the time. I didn't know there was something like an advertising agency. I had never heard of that. So I remember we met at Labadi Beach, and he pitched his agency to me. It was a Kenyan agency that had been set up in Ghana for a while, doing very well. And he wanted me to come on board as a support for the business development team. And then I'm like, I hear you, and it sounds really good, but I have a magazine, and I want you to help me to make it something. He's like, what is wrong with you? I'm offering you money. You are, does this thing make money? It's like, it doesn't make money. So he gave us a space in his basement in Osu at the time. And so it was 4 of us, me, Bright, Julio, and we had a designer who joined us as well. And so we went in there, basically to continue to do the magazine. But then I realized that there's this entire thing called a marketing agency. And so anytime you saw maybe Vodafone, events going on, it was done by somebody. And so at the time, we also had a network of campus teams and all that. So like, let's get into this. Like, we have a few events that are owned by us. We have the magazine. Let's get into this advertising space and enter it with the backdrop that we appeal to young people, because we had campus teams across there. And so that's basically where it started. And I mean, the rest is history, right? So I think just allowing it to become an advertising agency away from, we had to stop printing the magazine and get into this full time. So I think that is that transition point for us.
But I mean, even after you transitioned, right, and you started operating as a magazine, how would you, because then I worked in that agency, right? I worked in the agency that, what would I say, sheltered you, right? How you were still pretty small then, right? So how would you say you kind of scaled up? What did you do? What were some of the things that you did that helped you guys to scale up and become like a big player in the industry?
So here's the thing. I think one of the interesting things I've come to realize is this idea of life understood in retrospect, right? So in the moment, it was not a very intentional thing. It wasn't like, I'm going to take these steps. Now I can look back at these things and call them like, okay, these steps, okay. So I think, and I keep on saying it, that's one of the biggest things for me. The fact that in starting anything or whatever, just being able to be unguarded about all of that. I don't know how to explain it. So people asked me from the beginning, what if it doesn't work? I'm like, I'll just go and find something to do. It's not a problem. So there wasn't so much at stake at the time. I think the very first thing that I had working for us was the team, because there were all these very young people who just wanted us to make it happen. Like, it didn't matter. There wasn't so much at stake. We didn't have, let's say, families at the time, like in terms of like, none of us were married. It wasn't a problem of failing. So I remember that, we got this office space in Osu. It was a really tiny space. My mom got us, she took her old furniture at home and she rebranded it. And my favorite color is pink. And so she just made it pink and bought us our first desktop. And, that was our office. We didn't know actually what to do with the space. Like, what are we supposed to do? We wake up in the morning, come and sit here and like, okay, what do we do today? But basically, we were present and just ready to make it work. Basically, my mom at the time said, and she didn't understand it. She always said, "You are done with civil engineering and you are going to be what is this magazine like?" Who? And she was always asking like, "Who did a magazine and became rich? Like, what is it? Like, what go into this engineering thing." My dad went to register. Me and Bright again. My dad realized that Bright and I were always going everywhere together. So at the time they had just found oil and gas, and it was a big deal. So he went to register me in this oil and gas course, and added Bright because like, okay, if I don't register him, you won't go. But we went for one class, and it was like, no, this is not it. So we came back to sit in our office. My mom rebranded our old furniture at home. And then it's like, okay, you do whatever it is you're going to do. And when I think of it now, it's so strange to me because we were not making money. So every day I was taking pocket money from my mom. My dad was like, you are giving her this, you are enabling it, right? Because what is it, And so we go and sit there and then we are just thinking what to do. But what it did is that it developed this underdog mentality in us. So we have this thing we call internally the reserve player mentality. We are okay to come in very small. Like, because we're now starting, they won't give us a full project to run. They will give us one part of the project. They will say maybe do the hype, or they'll say bring the people or something. But that is the problem because we will do it so well that next time they will give us. It's like so we in-house we call it be okay with being extra. We will come in and do it as well as we can so that there's always a seat at the table for us. And so we grew up with that for a very long time. We got into Vodafone at the time and launched Vodafone X. I think that was like the turning point for us because then brands realized that, okay, these guys are serious. They can, bring some good value to the table. And then the other thing that was also happening is that because we are always showing up so well, sometimes when our clients leave and go into a new company, they call us and say, come there. So it's been a lot of recommendations, even to the extent of being able to set up in places like Liberia. It was always somebody who'd worked with us who said, come in and let's, get this thing. So, I mean, if you ask me what steps, it would be for me we will come and show up very well. And the team is a very united team, like, one purpose, just making it happen. Those two are the things I can say were like our big.
Yeah, but I like what you said about like always having the mindset of being a reserve player because I feel like now, like with most people starting things, everyone wants to kind of blow or like be the top of the top. But like I think we're kind of losing the mindset of starting small and being okay with the fact that okay, I'm starting small. So that's what I took from it.
We will break up into smaller parts anytime we are getting too big, right?
Okay.
So we are an organization. We are an organization of 140 people, but we
Sorry,
are
what?
140.
140 people.
Yes,
Human
140,
beings.
Yeah. 140 humans.
That is actually really big.
Yeah, but we are broken into departments.
Okay.
And so and even in the departments, they are broken into pods. So we are never too big, right?
Okay.
We have a very flat structure, and so whenever there's a new thing we realize we can do, like for example, during COVID, we couldn't do events, and so we converted part of the team into doing Influencer Africa. And that has become, I mean, many people don't even know that Influencer Africa is part of Echo House, but that's become another organization on its own. So they're all there in the office with us, but they are a different operation, you understand, looking for their own, let's say, revenue, with their own, I mean, path to achieving it. So it's always like, no matter how big you become, you must always break up into more granular, and then that granular unit must have a startup nature so that they are hungry for, growth. Yeah.
So I think for me, I wanted to answer this question as well. I'll say that one of the biggest turning points in my career was actually going out of Ghana to go work in an African country, right? And I did this when I was like mid-20s. My family was like, hey, like they didn't get it. Like, why would you just get up? And it wasn't accidental. I literally woke up one day and decided that, okay, I can speak French. I was finally working in it was also some form of a marketing agency. So I worked in swivel marketing, which was below the line marketing. And then I went to a research agency that's still in marketing. And I had the plan that, okay, I want to go and work in a Francophone country. I didn't want Ivory Coast because I felt like I've been there so many times. The culture is very similar to Ghana. It's too close to home. I wanted to go somewhere like far away. So once I went to Senegal and I was just like, oh, I think this is the place because, it's quite different. I think you've been to Senegal. It's quite different from Ghana. So I literally put in my plan and then I started working towards it. I even put I changed my LinkedIn settings. You can change your job location settings when you're looking. So eventually I got headhunted and then I got the role and then I went there. And I feel like that was actually one of the biggest turning points in my career. Firstly, because, when you go out of your culture, you are kind of looking at your culture from the outside in. So it made me start challenging a lot of things that I think had always held me back. Because now it was almost like I'm observing like an experiment. And I'm like, why do we do this in Ghana? Why do we do this? And I think that time was also really a coming of age, if that's what they call it. So by the time I came back, I think I had really grown in terms of in everything, my values, my mindset, and even work-wise, it was quite a challenging time for me too. So when I came back, I think I had learned a lot. And interestingly, even in my career, I found that I was getting more opportunities once I went there because it's like when people are hiring and you say, oh, well, I've worked maybe across, because I had also worked, I think across about 22 countries when I was working in Senegal. So it's like, oh, you worked in Senegal, you worked here. They just start thinking, let's just give it to this person because then we don't have to hire multiple people. She speaks both languages, she understands the countries and stuff like that. So for me, that was actually my turning point. Okay. So, we've spoken about all the things that kind of helped us accelerate, but have there been any, I don't want to call it failures, but any difficult moments in your careers, any challenging moments in your careers that made you feel like this is it, this is the end? And how did you navigate that?
Well, I don't know. I think working in the human rights space is always going to be challenging because we work on controversial issues. And when I say controversial, not controversial to me, but maybe controversial to the culture or to the country that you're working in, the space you're working in. So there's always that kind of risky business. There's always that challenge that you go through. Previously, I was working for a different NGO. I've always been in the NGO space, so and I was working more on gender rights. And sometimes gender rights can be a bit more safe than human rights because people are more willing to speak on gender-based violence. People are more willing to speak on women's rights. Whereas with human rights, not everybody agrees that there shouldn't be death penalty, for example. If somebody commits a murder, people want to see blood, blood for blood. So they would be like, this person needs to be executed. So not everyone is going to agree with what I believe and what the organization believes. And at a certain point, you just have to be okay with that. I'm not here to have everyone agree with what I'm doing, but I'm definitely here to make a change. And if that change means changing in a policy or changing a law, just impacting some policy reform or something, or changing a politician's mind, the office of the president or parliamentarians, because we do a lot of influence and we do talk and dialogue with government a lot. So when you think about it, yes, definitely challenges in that career, even challenges with family. Like they would ask you, well, my nuclear family they've known me to be like this all my life. So this is nothing new. However, of course, extended family would probably be like, oh, it's just a job for you. Are you sure you believe in what you're doing? You're just doing it for the money. Family and friends sometimes think that. And it's not. Like, it's not just a job. It's a lifestyle. It's how I actually believe in what I'm doing. Yeah. I had a whole argument with my friend about that because she was insisting that it's just a job for me. And I was like, then you don't know me. Because it's something that I actually believe in. And working here, you can't get away with working in such a space and not believing in the cause because you have to speak. Yeah. Now you become a spokesperson for the organization. How do you get on stage and talk about things you don't believe in?
It will probably show that
it would be very pretentious and then you must be a very good actor to do that, you know? So yeah, so I think those are basically what I would call challenges, just having like, I don't even care really if extended family doesn't back me up or not. So far as my family is fine with what I'm doing, I'm very okay with that. So yeah, challenges come and go, but we manage them at the end of the day.
But okay, maybe let me flip the question a little. What about something that was like a setback or a challenge that ended up being for the good?
So in 2022, we have an event, Tidal Rave. Sorry, we have an event, Tidal Rave, that started out as a fun, let's just...
The Gen Z thing here, the Tidal Rave.
That's one.
So wanted to go, but I think I wouldn't have fit in there.
Oh yeah, you just have to wear your booty shorts. Oh, yeah. It's never too late.
Good marketing though, it was everywhere. Everyone heard about Tidal Rave.
Thank you. So, I mean, it was a small thing. Tidal Rave was a student thing that, you know, just gather them, put them on a bus, take them to Kobite, and go and have fun and come back by 10 because the students needed to be home early.
By 10?
Yeah. So that was like the original concept. Summer vacation, they've not seen each other for a long time. So that was what it was. It was just a student thing, and typically you won't see any above the line marketing for it, right? So it's just digital, you know, and started, I remember that, you know, you would have maybe 2,000 people, 4,000, 6,000, until we got to, in 2022, we had been on break for 2 years because of COVID. And so it was a tidal wave coming back kind of conversation. And we were worried because we hadn't done it for 2 years. We thought, oh, will people come? So let's sort of reintroduce tidal wave. And that was a disaster because too many people, we changed the venue.
So that was which venue?
Kokobite, that's the last Kokobite one that, you know,
the
disaster. Yeah, I mean, I remember that, you know, I'm very protective of Echo. So I've always been in this space where it's like, we're doing our thing and, you know, I'm okay for us to be in a little space that nobody understands. But this blew up because it was everywhere. Like my mom called me and said, Mona, come on, some Peace FM. Because like, why are they talking about you on Peace FM? And, you know, they were just, I remember that, I mean, you know, all these very popular platforms like the dailies and stuff were reaching out and having all these stories. At a point, we wanted to verify some of them because I felt like, okay, this is a bit extreme. But the point was, it was a coming of age for tidal wave. I mean, we thought we were just doing something for young people or for students, but no, that tidal wave had about 8,000 people. And it was one of those things. It was the traffic and then the experience. But I remember that
so that there was a lot of traffic. You couldn't
it was
control.
Too much traffic. Security, I think when people had to park so far along the road that they had to walk, you know, from before they reached their car. And there were a couple of theft issues and stuff like that. So it was a complete disaster. You know, the thing is, the place is not built for us, if I should call it. Like, you know, it's like you are making do. And so what you would call parking, like we had gotten this parking lot and fenced it, but people wanted to park. Like people are driving big cars, they don't want to say they want to park by the road. they don't want to park in the car park. Like, so that was sort of the experience, you know. But you know, I mean, when that thing happened, and I sat with the team, I said, let's end it. Okay. It's over. It's okay. What is it? It's just an event that we're doing. It's not, and it was not necessarily even the most profitable thing. Yeah. It's just something that you do to keep your name in the books in a sense. So I was at the end of it. I thought this should be it. So we sat together as a team, and everybody, because they were bashing us everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, like anywhere you went, you were just seeing terrible things about tidal wave. And yeah. And when I sat with the team and I was having this conversation, they said, no, let's not end it. It's like, why? Let's end it. It's like, this thing will be the death of us.
This thing is not even profitable.
It's not anything.
Why
are we in this space?
Yes,
now... You understand? Why are we struggling for something like this? And then everybody's like, no. And I was like, they are bashing you. Some of you, they're even mentioning your name online. And you are still fighting for this thing. But it was a turnaround because in that meeting, we decided, okay, maybe it's time to leave Kokobite. And, what else is possible? Tidal wave was a journey. It was you got in the bus, you went traveled. Yes, it was a trip and so many things, but it's like, okay, what can we lose? And I feel like that's one of the first times we've come into a space of, trying to come out of debt. Like, we are always very much in our space, closed off. So we, there were so many suggestions. Like, even online, people were suggesting different things. So we're like, okay, no, let's actually take it serious. We made a list of all the possible locations people were mentioning. And I went around every location. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. People were suggesting so many different things. And so we went on this journey of the new rave, essentially. And it has been incredible. Like, I can't explain, what it has done for us. Moving it to La Palme and just giving it a complete relook. You talked about going to a new country. For me, it was a new location and having to rethink the event completely and saying, okay, where should the entrance be? Where should you put this? And deciding that, okay, we don't have the trip anymore. What do we have? Okay, we have a stage. And so now the stage for Tidal Wave has become like an iconic thing. So after Tidal Wave, the picture of the stage is the thing that we keep until. So now we are planning it. It's like, okay, what are we going to do this time? But it has completely turned the event around. And so when it was happening, I couldn't ever have said, oh, this is for good. But today I'm like, thank God that thing happened. Because maybe if we had continued, we probably have ended that event, because we didn't know what's next was possible.
And it's a good rave. I think I haven't been, sorry, but I know it's good because I have cousins that go for it. So it's a very inspiring story. So thanks for sharing.
But that's interesting. Maybe that's why they say you shouldn't hire a lot of yes men. Mm-hmm. Because imagine everybody thinks like, if you come and say, hey, Tidal Rave won't do again, they'll all say, oh, you're right, won't do again.
The boss is not right. Like, the boss is just suggesting what everybody is coming to debate.
Okay.
You understand?
So there's nothing like the boss says, you don't veto things.
No.
Ever?
No. Very rare.
Is that space in your company?
So let me explain that, right?
You see, I'm just joking.
It's problematic to have. So take it that we got into events marketing because actually Kafui suggested that we had been waiting for events to happen to print the magazine. So let's just do an event.
Yeah, remember that red and white?
Yes. Tidal Rave was not my invention. It was the team sitting together and saying, let's do a rave. Basically every important time, that I can remember is a conversation with different people. You understand? And it's sometimes something I don't agree with in the moment, but it comes to make sense. It doesn't mean I don't make decisions. Okay. My thing is, I am very keen to know everything, and some of the things I'm okay to say, I don't understand this now, I'll go with it and let's see where it gets to. And I don't think we are not political enough to say, this one is this person idea and it failed and therefore you have done it wrong. Okay. You understand?
There's no blaming.
No. So it's a very, it's okay to make mistakes.
Just to come in there, I think, again, because of the theme of International Women's Day, we're looking at accelerating progress and just diversifying ways of working. We've moved away from the traditional hierarchy in society where you have like a CEO and then subordinates. We don't use that term in our space. It's more of team building, it's more of team members, that kind of wording and language. And that's what is needed for acceleration. That's what's needed for growth and gender equality, because even as a woman CEO, as a woman head, how do you make sure the equality is for everyone And it's basically about doing that teamwork and changing your ways of working. So that's great.
I mean, now that we're talking about accelerating action, right? I want us to pivot a bit to the fact that we now have the first female vice president of Ghana, right? What are your thoughts generally?
I think when we had that conversation earlier, I was saying, assuming I was meeting her, I wouldn't even know what to ask. But then now I think I've thought of something. One of the things with women in leadership is that there's a lot of pressure on you from other women to see what you're doing specifically for them. And sometimes, even if it's not in the best interest of everyone, people expect that if there's a woman, there'll be some pressure that women would want to see what she's going to do for women. And I think that's one of the things that the US vice presidential candidate Kamala, she faced, because people said she didn't do anything for women. And it's like, you are a minority, so if you've gotten there, what are you doing to... So I just want to throw this more at the table. I'm sorry, it looks like but what are our thoughts on, should women in leadership actively push for certain things for women, or should it be more of it being for the good of the whole collective? Because for me, I foresee a lot of people saying that even she became vice president, what did she do for women? Right. But is it that easy to do something specifically for women, or?
But I think that's where power comes in, because you can be at a position, but how much power do you have? It's like the United States, you have a president and vice president. Vice president doesn't have as much power to get things done. You could suggest, you could bring up great, policies for change, but if you don't have a team supporting you, then what happens? I'll give you a very good example, the affirmative action law. It's there, it's very specific. However, government has decided to kind of throw it on the side, right? Because they have decided to lump the women representation in parliament, government appointed positions, ministerial, they've lumped it up. But in the law, it's very specific that it should be in segments. So you need 30% ministers, you need 30% office of the president, you need 30%, it's in sectors, it's segmented. But they've lumped it up and they're like, oh, we're...
Segmented according to the, what would you call it, like the demographics according to decision-making roles. So ministers, 30% of ministers should be women. Currently, that is not the case. But if you lump up all the appointments that they've done so far, then they are between 25 and 30%. If you follow the law, then we're doing less than 20%. So, I mean, can you say she's to blame for that? I'm not very sure, you see. And then again, I don't want to have her to be like is it tokenism? Okay, oh, you have the second person in charge is a woman. Okay, but how about the other roles? Office of the president has many women, but why is it that the ministerial positions don't have 30% women? Deputy ministers have less than 10% women. Parliamentarians, we are still dancing between 10 and 14% in parliament as we speak. So I don't know. For me, great. It's great. I'm happy that we have a woman vice president. However, how does that trickle down to other appointments or women representation? And that is where I find that there's a challenge. Because for me, I'm to be very transparent. When I first saw the campaign stuff, I think this from like 4 years ago. My initial thoughts were that tokenism. That's what I thought. But I went and did my research and realized that no, she's really qualified. Like she's worked. Like it wasn't like something that was handed to her. She's actually done the work. I do acknowledge, which is something I think we should also talk about, that it's also good for us to have male allies, because at the end of the day, even though she's qualified, if the president hadn't picked her, we won't have a female vice president. So I think that's also good, right? And I think for me, sometimes where I struggle is that I realize that a lot of people don't even understand feminism because they think, okay, you people say you want, I've heard people say you want a female vice president, okay, we have given you, right? You know, and I'm like, first of all, no, you've not like given it. They make it seem as if, I think they don't get.
In all honesty, we want a woman
Woman president, eventually. I think we should get there.
I don't want us settling for vice, deputy, assistant, second in charge. We should be in charge. We should be in charge. And that is where I come from. My school of thought is majority of the persons in this country are women. Why aren't more women in charge? Because they don't get that opportunity. Normally, every term, whenever a government comes into power, the women's rights organizations give them a list of qualified women. Yes, and most of the time it depends if you are party affiliated. So if you are with a specific political party, you are likely to be on that list and be suggested.
Oh, I didn't know that. So they
Yes.
can't say we didn't.
Yes,
they didn't
so a
find the
list is
women.
Where are
given.
the women?
A list is given, and based on that list, you can select based on what they, their qualifications. So absolutely not. The vice president is, she is able and she's amazing, but I want that amazingness and qualified, amazing woman to trickle down to other decision-making roles in government.
Maybe just to, so I wanted to say that for two things. We did something. We realized that even though in Echo House we have more of the leaders as women, but we also realized that very few women come forward and say, I want this role.
That's true.
So the men, so I'll give you an example. As we started to do expansion into like all of these countries, like the men, I know virtually the countries and the men that want to go there. Like they've
already said.
there's no like say I just want to go. I want to go. When this is starting, I want to go here. No women. So we started this thing we call She Unit. We are looking at it. We started it as a band. It's like a female band of like the women at Echo House. We just needed to have conversations because what we realized was when we talk, we have the same issues. Some of us have managed to cross it, but some of them haven't, and they don't even know that it's a common thing. So they think that, why is this happening to just me? And I noticed a trend where, marketing is pretty intensive. Agency work is intensive, yes. So I noticed something. When the women are getting married, they leave. You understand? When the men are getting married, they're there. Like, but the women leave when it's time to. So I was like, okay, let's bring ourselves together into this thing. Actually, it came from the men suggesting it because I think for them, they felt like you people should talk to each other more because you have the same problems, sort of. So let's say a man suggests this, we get into doing it. We've done it now for 2 years. This year in January, we came together to do like a vision board session. And it was we came in charged with all the, everything ready to start writing. And the person who led it said, okay, let's get into 2024 and let's talk more about it. And, it became I don't think I'll ever forget it. It became one of the most intensive, I don't like to use the word emotional, but the most emotional sessions we had ever had. Like to the extent that, like it was supposed to be a 2-hour session, it got into like five hours, and people were still there. Yeah. But the biggest thing, and I saw so many people saying it happened to me too. Like, when somebody is talking, it's like, it's not just me. I'm like, we are not talking enough. Yeah. So I think that in reference to having a vice president, it's really about the idea that they could have gone through all that we went through and still rose to, where they have gotten to. And for me, that is like a big thing. Yeah. Yesterday, I was talking to a woman, big woman, corporate woman, and then she was just saying to me, how are you doing? You are doing all these expansion things. How are you doing? I was like, I don't know how I'm doing because I'm wondering if I'm being a good mother. And I have only one son, so I feel guilty about saying it. Like you have a son and you cannot just, that's how I feel about it because I feel like
Then how about those who have 3 and
3,
4,
like, yeah, so I
still have
I cannot have this conversation. Like, I don't even think, I think my mom will look at me like, something wrong with you, because I feel like he's one son, only one. Why can't I, So I feel like seeing that she has all these kids. She is like, she actually climbed. Yes. So for me, it's been actually, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the lady I was talking to said, I said, how do I balance? She said, you can't balance. However, whatever you are doing in the moment, you must be fully present for it, and that, I think, since yesterday, I've been buzzing with it, because now I'm just imagining it's like, okay, now when I get time with Roman, it has to be Roman time, and nothing should matter. So I feel like I should have learned this maybe 3 years ago.
I think I learned this like last year, and it's been, because I'm always tired though, but I've learned to put things in boxes. So I mean, and I'll touch on that. I mentor a number of ladies every week. One of them is there. And sometimes they will even call me, I'm not ready yet because I'm still at work trying to meet a deadline. But the moment I drop that, like 100% attention, I'm like, ask me, let's talk. Once I switch from that and I enter my house, it is Tony time, right? Same like this, like from like yesterday, somebody talks to me, I'm like, I need to prep for this conversation. I've learned to kind of put things in boxes, because I realized that trying to balance was not balancing,
It's completely new to me. I've just been doing a lot of work and then peeping into every other thing. Right. And I'm like, no, actually, I need to relook at it. But I feel like if we spoke about these things a bit more, so I'm not necessarily looking for her to, it's not so much what will you do for women, but what spaces would you make? Right. I wish, right? So that we can hear those at the top and what they did. That I think that's my interpretation of.
And I mean, for me, that's why I created Vision with V. Sorry to just kind of plug in, but really, that's why I created Vision with V, because sometimes I talk to women and then they're telling me the things they're going through, and I'm like, oh, so am I, right? And so that's why I put the stories in Vision with V. And in fact, I forgot to mention that both Sheila and Genevieve are in the book. Have you read yours? And Beryl, oh yes, you too. I'm in the book, right? But I think for me, in terms of this whole feminism thing, I think that some people even think what we want is that just dash people, just dash women roles. I'm like, no, that's not what we are saying. We are saying there are a lot of women who are qualified, who are competent. But if we don't change the systematic, like, all the systems there that make it hard for women to step into these roles, the women are not going to even volunteer, right? Because they start thinking, okay, but if I want to work in this company, I've got 2 kids, I need to get home and feed them. Why would I volunteer to do that? So if we start creating, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but the systems that also help women to want to step into those roles, then we would naturally have more women in, that are, represented. So for me, that has been one of my biggest things. And when I say this at work, they always, every time I say something, they're like, oh, there she goes again. Like, because sometimes I realize people don't even notice that there's if it's even a micro injustice, right? And I'll give you an example. So I think it must have been a year ago, my brother is a co-founder of a workspace with 2 other women. And there was a time that some news, I think one of these news agencies, they had just I think launched something, and then they wrote an article. They didn't mention the woman. They just said the founder, and they only mentioned him. Right, but because for me, I'm so like my ears and eyes have become very sharp, so I spot a lot of these things like really quickly. So I mentioned it, and he was like, "Oh, he doesn't think that. I don't think they meant, And I was like, "Yeah, but I get that. You probably don't think they meant anything, but you need to be intentional about pointing it out." So first he was like, "Oh no, I don't think so." I'm like, I promise you, maybe they didn't notice, or maybe they also don't care, but you literally have 2 equal co-founders. And so it's actually unusual for them to only mention you and dismiss the rest who are also doing the work. So I appreciated that he actually went back to them and said, I have 2 co-founders, send the profiles. And then I saw that, I don't know if they kind of retracted it, but the very next day, I saw that now there was a photo with the 3 of them, and they had written an article and mentioned them. So I was like, and this happens a lot. It happens in corporates. Somebody in a meeting, you hear like a lady give a very solid idea. It will be as if she's a ghost, as if nobody heard.
They say,
and then a
she
second
said was
after,
that
a guy will say the exact same thing. Me, I'm so triggered when people try to explain what I said. Me, I can be very violent in meetings. Like I'll tell, let me talk. Or if I'm talking, somebody interrupts me. Oh my God! Like I would literally pause and say, like, I'm not done. Because I realized that there are some bosses, male bosses, who would, like, my boss is really cool. He would say that, like, she's speaking. Let her finish, right? Or he would say, oh no, she knows what she's talking about, right? But some people would think you're doing the most. They'll feel like, hey, you two, this small thing, like you're taking it too far. So my personality is violence every day. And now they're used to it. So they'll always joke that, oh yeah, there she goes again. Or sometimes I think, like I said, because of the way we are raised, like I always tell people that my siblings and my brothers and I, it took a lot for them to accept that we had we lived in the same house, but our experience was very different. And at first when I say, they'll say no, but I'm like, we didn't have the same. I had to come and do banku while you be playing with your friends, right? And for them, it's not something they ever thought about. So now they've become more, now they have daughters as well, so they've become more intentional about, like, oh no, you can't do this, or somebody says something that they feel like, hey, you can't say that. Why would you say that? And I feel like more of us need to start getting into that mindset that, no, it sounds very ancient, but a woman's place is not in the kitchen. Like, I've worked in places where when we all eat, then they're just like, the people get up and walk away because they think they're women at the table and the woman will pick it up. But me, because I'm violent, and I'm always about, hey, violence, I'll tell you, hey, did you bring your house up to work or something? But some people don't even realize that they have certain preconceived biases, right? It could habits, because why would you think that someone who's even more senior than you, because she's a female, you've eaten, you've left your plate, like, but it's also the way we are raised. We raise women versus men. I think that has changed significantly, like with this new generation. But I feel like if we don't talk more about these things and find a way to face them out, it will be difficult to get more women into places where, like, they are well represented. Because then not every woman is brave as well. Because, you are going to get people say things about you. Like what we were talking about, was it the Emirates lady? The fact that, okay, if she's doing her job, then they think, hey, she's Oye Bibi. But really, if it was a guy refusing you boarding, it's not a big deal. Like, it won't even be in the news, right? So there's also that, like, if a woman is insisting that something has to be done, fair, they won't even kidnap him. They won't be angry with him because they'll, but so those are all of the things that we need to be, I think that we need to also start talking about and trying to get out of our society to a large extent, so that women don't feel like, do I really want to go and, head some institution? They will say that I'm a witch, or I'm, the B word, or I'm sleeping my way to the top,
That comes up a lot.
and so on and so forth, But Patty, what do you think about that? All of these women empowerment issues.
Really great perspectives shared so far. I'm very big on women empowerment. If you look at my trainings and you look at the demographic, it's mostly 99% women. And so I believe so much in the ability to create spaces for women to thrive, for them to break out of conditionings that has created some form of limiting beliefs that is preventing them from stepping into certain roles. So here's one thing I've noticed. An entrepreneur will start a business going pretty well, and then she has a kid, and then the baby, the business, and it takes so much for them to, get it back. Those are all real things and usually they would not know that, what can I do in preparation for this season of my life to ensure that maybe the business can still run, and then I can take care of home, or it's okay for the business to be on hold for now so that I can take care of this season, and whenever I'm ready, I'll come back. But there's also that constant battle. I need to get the business back, I have to make it happen. It's not working. I feel like I am sacrificing something, to be able to nurture this. So it's great that we've seen somebody holding this office that has these number of children, has built a certain lifestyle to be able to get there, and I think it's a very good representation for us as women to look at it and say that if she was able to do it, I can do it too.
It's not like they just gave it to her, she worked.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in terms of allies, right? Like, what do we think? Do we think that the men in our society are doing enough to? I know this is not really about men, but I think it's important, right? Because I really believe that we can't actually scale those fences, or what do you call it? What's the term we use? Like break the glass ceiling without having allies. Right, because like I used the fact that the president nominated the vice president. If not, we probably won't have a female vice president. So do we think that the men in our society are doing enough? And it's like, do we think there are certain things that they can do differently or do more to help?
I think that for me, my career, I would say that I've been helped by men. Like, I can't pinpoint any female who has actually helped me accelerate, but I can say that there are a lot of men who have helped me.
Right.
But I do know that it's not the case for everyone. And when I was working in corporate, one thing I noticed, for instance, was sometimes even well-intentioned men end up doing certain things that
Undermine you.
Exactly. So there was this time, for instance, that I noticed every time there's work, because it's consulting, sometimes an email comes around 4 p.m. and every time that happened, I used to say with the guys, every time that happens, you notice that they don't send the email to me, then they send it to someone else, and they come and say, hey, I've sent you this email, I need it by maybe 10, I need it by this time. So one time I asked one of the guys that, why is it that you always skip me when it comes to work? Do you think I can do it? And he said, oh, you're a woman. I think that you have to go home early. I can't keep you here after 6. So to him, he was being nice so that I can go home early. But this is someone who has just started my career. Like, I'm good with staying till 11.
Plus, you didn't tell him that.
Yeah, and there were times there was once I stayed over till 3 a.m. in the morning because something had to go. But here's the case where even that was like 1 year into my first year. That's what the person told me. So even someone who has seemingly well-intentioned, good intentions for you might actually end up limiting your career because they are treating you, they put you in a separate box where you have to be like handle it like gloves and everything. For the people who have actually helped me, what I noticed is that they don't see it like I'm a female. So you work around the clock. It's sometimes it's like, why is a person calling you at this time? Why is a person doing this? But then if we don't take the gender out of work, we might never really accelerate, because every time, but then again, the other side of it is that at the end of the day, we are still women, and there are still certain things that kind of limit us, because if you have a baby, there's no way. There was one time I was doing interviews when we started out, and I had an external consultant helping me, and the person said he hopes that, we had 2 people were considering. It was like, he hopes that I go with a guy because my company is very small, and if I take the lady, she just mentioned that she's going to get married. So the moment she gets married, she's going to have a baby. It's going to affect.
How do you know that?
She's going on maternity. So you see, there are so many assumptions around, because she just said she was going to get married. But then there are assumptions that limit our progress. So there might be interviews that people have gone for, and they look at you, and then they're like, oh, you just got married 6 months ago. They will not take you because they think you are planning on a baby.
Some people even ask those questions.
People ask intrusive questions.
You're not allowed to ask those questions in an
So
interview.
she volunteered that information.
Yeah.
I don't even know why she would. Because I felt like there are certain things I don't say certain things when you come. Like, why would you even mention that? But she mentioned it, and they didn't want me to go with her. So the rest of the panel was like, no, you can't pick her because she's going to affect the bottom line. She's going to go on maternity leave. And I was thinking, but that could have been me. So I told them that, no, that could have been me. And at the end of the day, we didn't even go with either of the candidates. But it limits you so much. When I was in Big Four, I used to notice that people would enter at the same time, 10 years down the line, the woman is maybe assistant manager, the guy is senior manager. She was going on maternity leave, certain things were happening. And every time that happens, even with a very international company, you don't get promoted. So it's a very, like, we need male allies who know that they know your work, they know your worth. They know that even with a baby, you are still going to push. Because until we get men who say that, you know what, these people, I know the woman even probably puts in more work than the man. So let me give her that chance to shine. Until we get men who are actually willing to say that, at the end of the day, it's your babies that the women are raising. We're not raising babies from X or something. So, and that's how society grows. So we can't dismiss the fact that women have, but we have to offer women more grace. That's what I think. Men have to offer women more grace. Sometimes even during the time of the month, you are feeling a certain way, but you are showing up. Some of us feel so sick, we are throwing up and everything, but we are showing up. So there should be that intentional, mindset, the consciousness that women go through a little bit extra than men do. So offer them a little bit more grace. Like, I try to do that at work, where if sometimes someone is writing an exam or something, I tell you, no, it's just start working from home, okay? That's what we're going to say. Because I know she needs that time. So we say, okay, she's working from home. I might not give that to someone else, but then
be more flexible. Basically.
let's be flexible.
And then we'd
with
have to
women.
do more advocacy and dialogue
Exactly.
with the men.
For me, it's not only about just grace, because I think that it should be about systematic changes.
Actually,
so if it means, I don't know, I saw that some people were working on, I don't know, are you part of that, extending the maternity,
Yes, I'm part of
parental
the coalition.
leave. For me, those are the real systematic things that we have to change. Because when we say grace is very relative. You get my point.
But the
and even that, they can
maternity-
even use it against you, because I've been in a company where maybe if I'm stern about something, they'll say, are you on your period? And they think
Oh,
that
are they
do
for
you get my
real?
point? Yes. So if you
You're
start
not even
saying,
allowed to
okay,
say that.
people are not allowed to say a lot of things.
No, we don't say it, but
they will say,
I always tell people at work that you can't expect people to act the same way every time. So every time I'm telling them that sometimes people have certain, let's kind of adapt to each other. No one should be disrespectful, but then again, when people need space, give them space. Because people expect you to be bubbly every day, and it's not like that.
so
There's
before we
things
think about
happening in
treating
here.
people like they are humans, even before the gender part. We are human beings. We can't play sometimes. Me, I'm not a morning person. When I come and people are like, why are you talking to me? It's like, why are you asking me all these 200 questions at this time of the morning? So there's a lot of that. But anyway, I think,
I have been supported by men, especially with Vision with V. You'll be surprised that I always say that a good chunk of Vision with V is actually purchased by men. Every time I say this, people say, oh, they are buying for their girls, they are buying for their side chicks. I'm like, at least they are buying, and they buy multiples. They will buy 10, they will buy 15, and give them out. So I have quite a number of men who, some of them I know, some of them I have never met, who just think, oh, this is really amazing, and I think I should gift it to, maybe the people that I know, the women that I know, right? And then even men who've said really encouraging things, or who've tried to introduce me to people that, oh, I know this person, I want to introduce you, I think that you can grow, right? So I think that there are definitely those people. Maybe we need to get more of those allies, but I don't know how. I don't know if it's about educating, awareness.
Advocacy, educating them and dialogue.
Because they have grown up
In a different way.
Apart from the fact that, the men have grown up in a certain way, they will not come and fight for us, right? They can only be educated because a lot of the time they don't know that this is a problem. Like some of the things, maybe in a sense, like what you mentioned, he probably thinks he's being considerate of you by saying, I won't worry you after 5. You understand? But you are also in the field, and you want to you want to reach the level that So I think it's a lot of advocacy. Like the units we have in-house, she units, that's all I keep on saying. Because when we get in the room and we are fighting about, I need to be this, the men need to be, I say, no, just advocate for yourself and advocate for the women. You understand? Because a man can't wake up and then become another person at once, unless he's educated.
Right. I think as women too, and I think for me, I always say this thing, even the way we introduce ourselves, we are too humble. Earlier when everyone was introducing, they were like, oh, I work in insurance. I'm like, you are a CEO of an insurance company.
You know, you need to say it, because if you don't say it, how do people know how to find you?
When it's necessary, I say it, but it depends on the space. But definitely when I'm in a professional space, I will tell you my role and everything.
Okay, but why don't we say it even in personal spaces?
You know, I was doing the reverse of
Men
that.
do that, but I'm okay not saying it.
Okay.
It did, like again I said, if it's in personal spaces, I don't want to be talking about my job perhaps in my personal space. I want to talk about other
Right. So
things.
you just
I
say
want
I
to
work in human rights.
work in human rights. I'm a human rights activist, and I think from there it gives some mystery and it gives something to talk about. But definitely in the professional space, I definitely mention it, and that's maybe one challenge we may have as women. Your title, your full name is written nicely, and people introduce you and they say, "Oh, a rep from Amnesty International," and my country director position name is there, and that's what happens.
Because, that's maybe I'm looking at it differently. For me, that's my issue. Because we're not, I won't say forceful, but we're not owning it. It also makes people kind of...
Personal spaces, I don't want to be known as the sea of Iris here.
Exactly.
Like, because some
Okay.
people treat you a certain way
Way.
because
Thank
you are
you. Treat you
worse or they
sea-
treat you better?
No, they're
could be
too
both.
nice to you sometimes.
Okay.
Like, don't be fake. Let's just
Okay.
be real here.
So you're trying to be humble.
Not
It's not,
humble,
no.
but I
Okay.
don't want a certain tag
Don't
when
want
I
a
go
prejudgment.
to, yeah, like maybe
Okay.
in church or
Prejudice.
something. You don't want people
Yeah.
to be, oh, come and sit here, come. No. Like, you know what? Like,
You
this is
don't
my
want special
me
treatment.
time. This is my me time.
But when I become a CEO... Okay, I get it. And Beryl, you too, is that why you've been doing I work in a creative agency?
I do work in a creative agency.
You do, but still, like, anyway. But I mean, generally, I always
No, I
tell
usually don't remember.
that, okay.
No, you see, like, because I'm usually inside it. I don't know if you
Okay.
understand. It's very hard to know that, okay, this is the moment when you have to go and say you
Okay.
are. Do you understand?
Right.
So it's
I
not
see
because
your
of
point.
humility.
For me, I know the moments, and in professional settings, I definitely mention who I am, my role, and everything. But if it's in a personal setting, I leave that, and maybe later on in the conversation it may come up. I've even corrected MCs. Like if I go somewhere like a rep, I'm like, I'm not a rep, I'm a country director. Kindly correct yourself and
like
introduce
that.
me properly.
Yeah.
So most of the time I won't proceed to go on the stage unless you're corrected. Or when I get there, I will tell you I am not a rep, I am the country director. So I definitely introduce myself properly, and it's very important.
I think so. Because I tell that to the ladies I mentor, like, maybe because you guys have already arrived, so that's why you don't feel the need. But for me, I feel like the younger women, and a lot of, even at work, like sometimes you ask them, what do you do? Then they want to do, I'm just, I'm like, what is that? Like,
Even for example, the interns in my office, when they go for meetings, you're not an intern. You're a program assistant. You are, mention a title and not just you are an intern. Because when you say you're an intern, people don't really take you seriously at meetings. So.
Yes.
so now when it comes to your individual success, right? Because in my opinion, you're all very successful, whether you accept it or not. Like they say that success can sometimes feel lonely, right? Have you experienced that? And like, have you ever felt like, okay, you're a bit isolated or you don't feel...
Well, definitely in the space, you're isolated. So that's another thing I've created. I've created a Women Directors in Ghana space platform. So we have
development or general?
general, actually, not just in development. I mean, it started with development. So on the platform, you see quite a number of women in development in international organizations. Let me be more specific. So it's women directors of international organizations in Ghana. So most likely it will be in development. And we meet up once a month, and because, I was feeling lonely, so that's why I established that platform, because the kind of challenges a male director will go through are not necessarily the challenges I go through, so I just needed that support system. And it started with one friend of mine who was also a managing director of an organization, and we sat together and we're like, we need to add more women to this, because there are so many things. You become lonely. You can't discuss everything with, you can't discuss things with your team, because again, you're the director. There are certain things you want to say or do, but you can't do it. So yeah, it definitely becomes lonely. So you have to find ways and means of a support system. And that's why I created that like WhatsApp group where we are supporting each other. So about not more than 15 right now, but we try our best to meet. We discuss issues on the platform and stuff like that. So it's a great space, and it works for me.
Patty, what about you? Because you especially you, because you kind of work, you do a lot of work alone. Yeah. So how's that?
I would say from the beginning, not now, because what I do was quite new in the Ghanaian space. So I couldn't find people that were also hungry to know more about, this industry, how to improve ourselves and all of that. But along the way, I found people that see what I'm doing, and they're like, listen, I've been trying to do this too, let's talk about it. So I have been intentional about creating that space that I needed for the people that are also looking to start this journey or midway. I go for a lot of conferences, so I make friends that are also on the same journey. Because sometimes the problem is not really because you don't have people around you, but they're not on the same wavelength. So they don't understand your challenges, they don't understand your crazy dreams and all of that. But along the way, I've found really supportive friends that are also, when you share certain things with them, you don't sound crazy. They understand your routines. They understand that, I need to take time off. I can't take calls now and all of it. So for now, currently, I won't call it a lonely. Right. Yeah.
But what about even just some of the other things that we experience, like maybe imposter syndrome, doubting yourself? Do you ever doubt yourself?
Oh yeah, sometimes you question what you're doing, right? You're like.
Because I think sometimes people think that, okay, if you're a CEO, you've been able to rise to like country director, then, you are very confident, obviously. So it means that you can never doubt yourself. So
you doubt yourself, and that's why I love what Beryl said. It's teamwork. I don't make all the decisions by myself. Of course, some of the decisions I have to take whether I like it or not. And I think at the beginning, that was very difficult for me to just be like, you're the one taking the decision. If things do not go the right way, it's on you. So I've had to deal with that in a very difficult way, that if I made a mistake, I'm very quick to apologize, but it hurts that, damn, this is me. I made this mistake. So it's just about teamwork. A lot of discussion goes on in my office. I'm always like, what do you think about this? And when I say something, I don't like people to take it hook, line, and sinker. I want them to come back to me and definitely be like, no, I really don't think this way you've proposed, Genevieve, is the right way. I'm like, okay, tell me what you think is best. And then we go with your way. It's never my way or the highway. And I think imposter syndrome, sometimes it does that to you, that you question, am I sitting here? Am I, Yeah. But there are ways around it.
That's interesting. I like that. So it means that one of the ways to combat self-doubt is by also getting opinions from other people. Yeah. But how do you manage it such that you don't get...
Yeah, not necessarily opinions. I would call them like teamwork, discussing together. Okay. Yes. Because for people's opinions, that doesn't matter to me.
And I think that maybe your journal can be one of the ways for us to combat that. Okay, so why I'm saying this is I like to write my thoughts a lot. And it helps me when I feel a bit confused. Maybe I've taken a path and I'm like, wait, did I really have to do this? Going back to just read it, reflect on it, it's like, okay, you know what? You actually have made some progress. Maybe it's not going as fast as you thought it would, but then it's still progress. So appreciating the very little things that have happened throughout my journey. And I think that imposter syndrome too, it's a Ghanaian thing sometimes, because we are kind of conditioned to be humble. So sometimes that humility eats into even your successes, such that when you are even super successful, you don't see yourself in that. So you are now a Pan-African brand, creative agency. But then you still maybe have not wrapped your head around it. I'm taking a shot at Beryl. But then sometimes I'm sitting down, I'm like, okay, you know what? Iris, you're doing so well, but then why don't I feel like I am really doing that? Because it's like you still want to do more. Right. And it's sometimes good. It's good, but then we have to own what we've done in the past, because you did this, you put in the effort. Like other people started, they might have failed. Some people never started, you started this. So even if it doesn't go too well, there's a lesson that you learned from it. And then maybe documenting the journey to helps you to see how far you've come and be grateful for the journey.
So, Genevieve, I think just to kind of leap off her question, right? You are the first female country director of Amnesty International in Ghana for a company or an organization with such a history. How has that been?
I mean, it's been normal, I guess. Yes, we've been in Ghana for 50 years, so kind of like their 50th anniversary, they got a woman director. Before I was there, I think they hadn't had a director for a couple of months, so there's this thing about change management. So the first 6 months, I decided I'm going to do a lot of change. And as much as I was rapid and maybe a little forceful and aggressive, I felt it needed to be done in order to create a sort of structure in the organization. Not that there wasn't one there already, but that particular structure just wasn't working for me at the time I entered the organization. So, and it took time. You know, people will be resistant to change. People will not be very happy with the kind of rules you bring in. And of course, I put perks as well. Like, we're changing things. However, I'm a very flexible person. I'm somebody who, I operate an open door policy. Anybody can walk in. You don't have to pass through my PA. That doesn't work for me. I remember when I started, they always wanted to be carrying my bag. I said, I'm actually not that type of boss. I don't do the whole bag carrying thing. So it took some weeks that every time I would say, no, don't touch my bag. And then it was learned that, okay, she doesn't like her stuff being touched and stuff, things like that. So it took time. And then, you know, I came to an organization that liked to use auntie and uncle. Yeah, and I was very shocked because we go by first names. All the organizations I've worked with, I call my boss by his first name. There's nothing like auntie, uncle. Yeah. So I had to put a rule in place and be like, no more auntie, uncle. We are not doing that, you know, because it doesn't bring diversity and it doesn't foster inclusion. Right. So regardless of whether you're an intern or not, call me Genevieve. Like, although they refuse to call me Genevieve, I must say. So they call you Madam Director. Director Genevieve. They just call me Director. It's, yeah, I'm still not used to it. I'm not used to it, but at least the auntie and uncle has been flushed out.
So you kind of modernized.
I wouldn't say modernized, but just a different way of working. Okay. I have a very different, and I can imagine that every director that comes puts in place a completely different way of working. Yeah. But I must say, I think they like it because I'm a bit more flexible. I'm loud, so when I come to the office, everybody knows I'm there, you know. So yeah, I mean, being the first is not an achievement for me. I just hope, should I leave the company one day, the organization one day, the next person will still be a woman, and it should continue like that, I'm hoping. And yeah, it's been progressive. I think the board is quite a progressive board, and I think that's what has helped the organization a lot as well. Yeah.
Like, if I take it to the opposite side, like Patty, you have created a very strong personal brand, especially online. Like, I used to hear Patty the Strategist for so long until I actually went to search you. So how do you manage that so that you are still a real person, like you're still authentic, if that's the word?
I think I don't look at it from I'm putting anything that is not real or anything superficial online. In whatever brand I am pushing, I am making sure that this is me. I'm just amplifying it. This is me. This is how I speak. These are my thoughts. This is my opinion about this. I'm just making it a lot more accessible to people. So I do not show up in a way that I'm not. Yeah. And I love to say I'm just a girl.
You're just a girl. Because I feel like there's a certain pressure to curate success online. Like everything has to look like perfect, well curated. So I've just been wondering how you balance, because it means that your career is literally on socials. Yes. So how are you able to, because you said you're even off socials now because you're doing some organization. Yes. So I've just really wondered how you balance.
So first of all, I don't let socials or whatever ideology, whatever stereotype is there, drive my decision making. I would say that maybe just 30% of my life is on social media. Right. And so I don't put out anything that I don't want to put out. Right. I don't share every little detail about my life. And so for me, what is success to me? Not what success is to the 10 other people that right. maybe are building amazing things. It's me. Last year, if I made 5,000 cedis and this year I've made 10,000, that's success to me, and that's what I'm going to put there. I'm not going to, once you start comparing yourself to other people, then you are forced to present something that does not exist. So like at your core, yes, at your core, who are you? What are you trying to achieve? And let me also add that creating your personal brand does not necessarily mean that putting everything out there. You don't have to put every achievement or every single win or losses, but there's an audience you are looking to impact or you are trying to reach. What will be relevant to them to help this person move from point A to point B? That is all that matters. So don't be forced into doing something that you know is completely opposite of you. Yeah. If you know that I don't like speaking, I can't sit behind a camera and talk about something and I would rather write, then that is your way of creating your personal brand. Do you understand? Yeah.
So you shouldn't do that just because maybe Patty is doing that, so okay, then I also have to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, we're actually coming to the end of the conversation, because if you leave me, we'll go on forever, but we have to wrap it up. So I want you guys, each person, to tell me about a woman that inspires you in our society, someone who you believe is actually doing the work to accelerate action and who you would like to celebrate publicly. Where do we start from? Okay.
Okay, so maybe I'll go. Okay. One person that inspires me is Patience Achianu. She's actually my mentor, and she's also the group managing director for Hollard Ghana. She used to be the MD of Barclays Ghana before she became the group MD for Hollard Ghana. And I like the way she's very intentional about projecting women within her company. And even she's also, I think she's a pastor, so she does that in her church as well. But every International Women's Day, she tries to be very intentional about creating something for the women. She brings other women to come and speak. She also supports Willy Africa in the work that we do. And one thing I like about her is that she's very bold and she owns it. You know, sometimes when you're a woman, people expect you to be a certain way so that you'll be likable, but then she comes out as herself, and so far it has worked very well. And she's that person that I like her work ethic. If she tells you we are meeting at this time, she's going to be there at least even before that time. And if every time I have a meeting with her, maybe she tells you, okay, I think I should introduce you to this person. I think I should do this. As you're even speaking, she's making the calls, so by the time you leave there, it's not just about, I'll do this, that never gets done. It actually has been done, so that you leave with something concrete. And I find that very admirable. And yeah, I'd just like to, in case she listens to this part, I'd really like to celebrate her. She's an amazing person.
That's really amazing. Anyone else have someone to?
I'll talk about Uche Ofodile, because bold. I mean, bold, constantly bold. I think from the time that we came into contact with her, I realized that there's nothing like impossible for her. So from, Vodafone, buying into VGMA and everything she built as a brand for Vodafone, and all the places she's been, it's always obvious when she touches a brand. And that is something that is always shocking for me. Because she enters and it feels like, okay, this is on a downturn, and then suddenly there's all these things are happening, and you feel like, okay, Uche has been here. And she holds space for women, so she would typically, like, so much is going on, she typically still find time to say, you good? What's going on with you? What's on your mind? And it's very multi-dimensional, right? She understands that, okay, there's you that's leading the business. Like, when she asks you how you are, she's like asking you how you are as you, like the business, all the energy. She says, but how are you doing? And for me, that's always like actually, Beryl, how are you? Like, so that's something that I really admire, yeah.
Mine would be Yasmin Lugudo. In the last 1 year, she's been a very instrumental part of my development, spiritually and other things. Because in a conversation, I'll say in passing, oh, I'm supposed to do this. And the next time, she's like, how far? Have you done this? Have you done that? Let me connect you with this person, So she does this not only for me, but she runs a women ministry as well. And so that, I think, should be celebrated.
For me, it's just all women directors in the INGO space. I think we have a solid group that we're in right now. We have each other's backs, and they are doing so well. Water Aid director, and then there's IFDC. There's, they are doing such a great job, and yeah, I just want to shout out to them. And of course, my mom. I think most of my traits come from her, and her just being outspoken and as crazy as she is. I think I got that craziness as well. So I think, yes. So shout out to her as well.
Mrs. Elaine Partington. Right?
Yes.
Special one for I think for me, I've actually been struggling. I had so many in mind, but I think generally it's just the women in our society, the modern women who are not gatekeeping, who are putting others on, who are introducing one woman to another woman for them to work together. I really just want to shout out that trait. I hope that we do more of that, because I think that that's actually one of the only ways that we can grow. And just wrapping up as well, is there any question that you have that you wish that any of the other women at this table could answer for you? If you had to ask a question to any of the other women around the table?
Just kudos to all of you and what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
No other questions? Okay, so if your younger self could see you, if you look back, I don't know, 10 is too recent, 20 years ago, or even, I don't know how old we all are, but maybe like 30 years ago, what do you think your younger self would say?
Good job. You're doing a good job.
Keep it up.
I'm not crazy. It will happen. So keep going.
I think, so what I'm saying to her, or what would she think?
What would she think? Or what would she think? How would she feel about who you are today?
I think she'll be very surprised. Very surprised, because a lot of the things that I'm doing now, I used to say, I don't know how to do this, I don't do this, I don't do that. So I've really stepped out of my comfort zone. So she'll be surprised, yeah.
Okay. And if you had to, I think this is like the last question. I've been saying the last question for the last 5 minutes. This is actually the last question. So you finish the sentence. For women in Ghana, the future is
Audacious.
audacious.
For women in Ghana, the future is now.
Now. The future is about action.
I think the future is exciting. Let me borrow from Vodafone.
So yes, I think that for women in Ghana, the future is about going out and getting what you want. Nobody's coming to save you, but other people can help you. And so I think that we've come to the end of our conversation, and I encourage any woman listening to this to understand that you have everything you need. You just have to go out, work towards it, accelerate action and progress in your own way. And to the men as well, keep being our allies so that we can also break the glass ceiling. Thank you all for coming to our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.